Okay.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Department of Family Medicine, Government Medical College, Kozhikode, I welcome you all to the fourth topic of the series of webinars. And today's topic is polycythemia and myeloproliferative disorder. How and how much to evaluate. And the speaker for today is Dr. P.K. Shashidharan, former HOD, Department of General Medicine, Government Medical College, Kozhikode. And to your attention, next week we will be having a topic on balanced diet. And those who have any questions, you can put in chat box or raise your hands. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Shall I share the screen?
Sir, start here. Share it.
കാണുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ അല്ലേ?
ഉണ്ട് sir, കാണുന്നുണ്ട്.
Polycythemia is very common, but unfortunately the plan to evaluate and manage is not properly understood by most of us, resulting in several unwanted investigations and even mismanagement. I have been witnessing that for the last 2 decades. And I thought I'll share my thoughts and information collected by studying numerous patients with polycythemia, because I was in charge of the hematology clinic at Calicut. So I happened to collect several patients. So I have the information on very important issues which help us in properly evaluating and diagnosing polycythemia, including polycythemia rubra vera. I will be touching only on polycythemia rubra vera among the myeloproliferative disorders, because I thought the chapter will be too long. So I will give an overview of polycythemia and then go on to discuss polycythemia rubra vera with some case histories. Before we start thinking of polycythemia, we should always rule out spurious or relative or apparent polycythemia. That is easily done by just studying the clinical setting. You don't need any other investigation. Apparent polycythemia or spurious polycythemia or relative polycythemia happen because of a reduction in plasma volume. This could result from dehydration, severe dehydration, because of diarrhea, vomiting, or unmonitored excessive use of diuretics. All these are got from history only. Otherwise, it happens in conditions like dengue fever, leptospirosis, where there is a capillary leak syndrome, or it can happen also in severe burns where plasma is lost into the tissues. And sometimes, not very uncommonly, it could be a wrong laboratory report too. So let us be ruling out all these spurious, relative, or apparent polycythemias before you embark on investigating polycythemias. This is a very important point to keep in mind. This appearance, the ruddy complexion, the conjunctival congestion, you can see the erythematous face in spite of the dark skin, which may not be obvious unless you look for it, because always in clinical medicine, eyes will see what the mind knows is the principle. Routinely look for it. When you say there is no pallor, you should also look for congestion of eyes, but congestion can sometimes be due to other reasons like conjunctivitis. Other than polycythemia, also sometimes you get congestion of eyes. And then before you proceed further, confirm it from a reliable lab. If you get a PCV more than 52% or in males, or a PCV more than 47% in females, it confirms polycythemia. But start doubting it whenever the hemoglobin is more than 16 and PCV more than 50 or even 48 in males, and in females whenever the hemoglobin is more than 15 and PCV more than 45. Start doubting it. Anyway, the hemogram helps also in looking for some of the features of polycythemia rubra vera, where you get thrombocytosis and leukocytosis as well. But do not depend on hemogram alone. you need clinical features as well. Confirm it as true polycythemia by the clinical setting, as I mentioned before. First, you need to exclude all the spurious polycythemias by studying the patient for any plasma volume loss, dehydration setting, including diuretics. Then, if you're familiar with the symptoms and signs of polycythemia, that will also be helping us in diagnosing, picking up the cases of polycythemia. And as I mentioned before, the ruddy complexion and conjunctival congestion is an additional point. Palmar erythema may be there if you look for it. These findings, the ruddy complexion, conjunctival congestion, and palmar erythema, is due to the excessive deoxygenation and sluggish flow of blood through the dilated cutaneous vessels. And in extreme polycythemias, you will get cyanosis as well, because the cyanosis is decided by the absolute amount of deoxygenated hemoglobin. Once you're sure it is true polycythemia, the next step is to find out whether it is a primary or polycythemia or a secondary polycythemia. Primary means it is erythropoietin dependent. Secondary means it is erythropoietin. Primary is erythropoietin independent, and secondary is erythropoietin dependent. Erythropoietin independent means there is no physiological stimulus. It could be an acquired disorder like polycythemia rubra vera. Very rarely it could be hereditary, familial, and congenital disorders. But these are extremely rare. The only primary polycythemia that we need to consider is polycythemia rubra vera. And the secondary always is mediated by erythropoietin. Either it could be a physiological increase in erythropoietin due to hypoxia in the due to systemic lung or heart disease, or at least local hypoxia in the renal circulation, or it could be an pathologically increased erythropoietin from different sites. But this is only to give a concept regarding primary and secondary. That does not mean that you will estimate erythropoietin for differentiating between primary and secondary. This is the biggest mistake that is happening in evaluating polycythemia. People do erythropoietin levels which are notorious for unreliability. Most of them come with normal erythropoietin and mistaken diagnosis of polycythemia rubra vera, which in fact they are not PRVs. And secondary polycythemias, as I mentioned before, we should be familiar with the clinical presentations. The common causes of erythropoietin increase is hypoxia driven, the commonest of which is chronic lung disease. Most importantly, COPDs, which are obvious from the smoking history and the physical findings, and rarely sometimes it could be interstitial lung disease. Or it could be right to left cardiac shunts, which could be congenital cyanotic heart disease, where they may be symptomatic from childhood onwards, or after several years, some of these patients with the left to right shunt, when they develop severe pulmonary arterial hypertension, develop a right to left cardiac shunt, which all can be picked up very easily. Sometimes you get severe pulmonary arterial hypertension without an underlying cardiac disease. That also can be diagnosed if you carefully auscultate for a loud P2. Another very important condition is chronic carbon monoxide exposure. This most importantly results from chronic heavy smoking. Sometimes it may be in automobile workers also, or it may be because of high altitude stay where chronic hypoxemia can lead to increased erythrocytosis. In fact, polycythemia refers to all three lineages. Erythrocytosis is the correct term for the polycythemia that we are referring to in secondary polycythemias at least. Only in PRV it is true polycythemia. Then you get several hypoventilation syndromes, most important of which is obesity related. But when you say obesity, don't think it is extreme obesity. Any weight gain can be a cause for chronic hypoventilation, and that can result in undiagnosed polycythemias, which I will touch upon at the end of the talk. And these are extremely rare. Sleep apneas and respiratory center dysfunctions, which are described as on-dying cases and all. These are rarest things you will never come across. But we discuss these very often. But let us concentrate and focus on the common things that present as polycythemia. Sometimes secondary polycythemias, which are hypoxia driven, can be due to renal artery stenosis, because here the hypoxia is in the renal environment, resulting in excessive erythropoietin production and consequent erythrocytosis. Very rarely, high oxygen affinity hemoglobin, where the oxygen binding is very tight and the oxygen unloading in the tissues is defective, leading on to tissue hypoxemia, and which might be affecting renal parenchyma also can result, because erythropoietin is secreted from the kidneys. So if there is renal ischemia by any mechanism, you can get a high erythropoietin secretion. Similarly, very rarely you may get a 2,3-DPG deficiency where there is a defective unloading of oxygen in tissues resulting in tissue hypoxemia. And occasionally we see case of congenital methemoglobinemia where the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is poor, resulting in tissue hypoxemia and increased erythropoietin secretion. Hypoxia independent causes of polycythemia are not uncommon. These are actually pathological production of erythropoietin from different sites, most important of which is renal and hepatic origin, or rarely cerebellar hemangioblastomas. In the hepatic cause, hepatocellular carcinoma is most important, and rarely you may get non-malignant conditions like uterine fibromas, polycystic kidney disease. Adult polycystic kidney disease is not present like that. Even hydronephrosis, left atrial myxoma, pheochromocytoma, adrenal adenoma, meningioma, these are all known to produce erythropoietin. And in that case also you may get a hypoxia independent erythrocytosis. Rarely it may be androgen or anabolic steroid abuse seen in athletes, or this is the erythropoietin abuse itself. Directly they might use erythropoietin for increasing their exercise performance. These are extremely rare situations, but if it is an athlete, you may have to explore this possibility as well. And some unknown, extremely rare mechanisms only are congenital polycythemias and post-renal transplant erythrocytosis. These are all extremely rare situations. And how do these patients come to us? These days, because of unnecessary or routine investigations, many of them come with a high hemoglobin and PCV without any diagnosis after routine hemogram. Otherwise, they come to us with the symptoms and signs due to the increased viscosity of blood, which I will discuss later, or because of the increased vascular space, because the blood volume increases, it occupies increased vascular space, and that can result in several symptoms. And symptoms and signs due to the underlying disease which has caused polycythemia will also be a presenting manifestation in some of them. Symptoms and signs due to polycythemia can be vague and non-specific. Because of the increased blood volume, they may complain of fullness of head, feeling of fullness of head, or heaviness of head. Sometimes they come with headache, and sometimes it may go to the extent of refractory migraine or dizziness, unexplained dizziness and tinnitus, lightheadedness, lack of concentration, fatigue, all because of the sluggish blood flow, because of hyperviscosity of blood. And symptoms are due to the cause or complications can also be the presenting symptom. It could be ischemia to various organs, which can result from venous or arterial thrombosis. And after having diagnosed polycythemia, then you start looking for the underlying disorder. Always look for apparent polycythemia before you consider true polycythemia, before you embark on investigations, including diuretic use. Any history to suggest an apparent polycythemia like diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration, and plasma leakage should be looked for before you entertain investigation for polycythemia. This happens very often in patients with dengue fever and leptospirosis and even snake bite poisoning. Smoking history is very important. It can be misleading very often. In fact, I know one female patient who had been investigated extensively, including cardiac catheterization was done. She never told that she used to smoke because she was afraid of admitting that. And finally, when I suspected it very strongly, I sent all her relatives away and then asked her confidentially, and she admitted that she used to smoke for a long period. And the smoking history can be misleading sometimes. And another very important point these days is to ask for weight gain. Ask very carefully. There is no point just asking, because their concept of normal weight may be wrong. So you need to find out whether they have put on weight from their normal expected weight. And symptoms and signs due to chronic lung disease. Obviously, you can look for the symptoms and signs of COPD and ILD. Cardiac symptoms, because they develop Eisenmenger syndrome and come with right to left shunt and polycythemia. These patients would have been having a long history of exertional palpitation. The ASD and PDA especially, they may not be ASD and VSD and PDA. But among these, ASD may not be picked up because unless you carefully auscultate, nobody would have picked up that. But VSD and PDA would have been picked up earlier. So you will get a past history of such a disorder. And congenital cyanotic heart disease with right left shunt will be having symptoms since childhood onwards. Look for the cause in regarding renal causes like the hypernephromas can come with hematuria, hydronephrosis can have obstructive symptoms, and adult polycystic kidney disease can have a sometimes vague lumbar region pain, and when you palpate you get a lump also. Illicit history of living at high altitude, and sometimes syncope may be the presenting symptom of severe pulmonary artery hypertension. Primary pulmonary artery hypertension like presentation is a very often missed cause for unexplained polycythemia, because some patients may be having recurrent pulmonary thromboembolism or pulmonary vasculitis. They develop severe pulmonary artery hypertension, and they can have right to left shunt across a patent foramen ovale, and finally they come with polycythemia and cyanosis, and the symptom that they would have been having could be syncope or exertion. That has to be looked for. Occasionally, and these patients usually have an underlying antiphospholipid antibody syndrome with recurrent pulmonary embolism. And sometimes, very rarely, extremely rarely, you may get a family history, and in that case, you need to suspect a congenital polycythemia also. If you get hypertension in a patient with polycythemia, most often it is essential hypertension with a chronic hypoventilation, or think of renal artery stenosis and adult polycystic kidney disease. So auscultate the lumbar region and palpate the kidneys. But remember, polycythemia rubra vera can also have hypertension due to the renal ischemia, because the sluggish circulation through the renal parenchyma can result in increased secretion of renin-angiotensin. So they can be hypertensive because of that also. If you find clubbing in a patient with polycythemia, it could suggest a right to left cardiac shunt or a respiratory disease like interstitial lung disease. Rarely this can occur with the myxomas as well. If you get splenomegaly, most importantly suspect polycythemia rubra vera, but rarely other causes can be coexisting. Incidentally occurring portal hypertension could be the reason. Cardiovascular examination, look for evidence of right to left shunt like TOF like presentation, and look for pulmonary artery hypertension looking for a loud P2. And chest examination, look for evidence of COPD, that's barrel-shaped chest, and decreased expansion may be the only finding in interstitial lung disease. Then when you carefully look for, you may get crepitations and rhonchi also. Palpate for renal lumps, groovy over the renal artery, and look for renal left atrial myxoma and hepatoma also sometimes in undiagnosed cases. This was a patient with COPD respiratory failure. He came with acute exacerbation of COPD. This is a blue blotted type of presentation with a very high PCV, around 64%. And after treatment with the diuretics, venesection, and control of the infection, he improved and the color has improved. This is a blue blotter presentation of COPD respiratory failure. If you find clubbing like this, it usually is a congenital cyanotic heart disease, but also consider interstitial lung disease. The polycythemia rubra vera have some unusual presenting features as compared to other group, but they remain asymptomatic for several years. Because of the hypoxemia, they may experience headache or impaired mental faculty, mental acuity or fatigue, as in any other polycythemia. These are common to all polycythemias. Sometimes they get cyanosis on minimal exertion when the polycythemia is very severe. And due to the high red cell mass, they develop thrombotic tendency. These are all common to most of the polycythemias, but extremely common in polycythemia rubra vera. They develop thrombotic episodes, both arterial and venous thrombosis is common, or they may present with vertigo, tinnitus, headache, and visual disturbances. Some of them present with ischemic heart disease, CVA, or digital ischemia. We had several patients who had these presentations. And Budd-Chiari syndrome again is not uncommon, or they may present with deep vein thrombosis or cerebral vein thrombosis. And if you do not pick up the polycythemia, the diagnosis and management will be absolutely wrong. And there are some specific features in polycythemia rubra vera. Never entertain the diagnosis if the patient is less than 30 years. The patient, youngest patient I had seen is 38 years. Most patients are above 45. So do not entertain in younger individual. This point alone will help avoid unnecessary investigations. Do not think of polycythemia rubra vera in a patient of 20, 25 years coming with polycythemia. And next important feature of polycythemia rubra vera is absence of secondary causes. One must be familiar with all the secondary polycythemias, and it is very easy to look for it. Aquagenic pruritus, if it is present, is a little specific for polycythemia rubra vera. Similar is the case with the erythromelalgias and painful extremities. This occur due to thrombocytosis with a small vessel occlusion, which are often mistakenly investigated as vasculitic disorders. I had several patients who had been extensively investigated for thrombocytosis causing this problem. The thrombocytosis was not considered as due to the myeloproliferative disorder. If you get splenomegaly, that is a definite point in favor of polycythemia rubra vera. Many of these patients with the PRV might come with hyperuricemia related symptoms like arthritis, effusion in the joints, renal stones, or some of them can present with bleeding from nose or GI tract. This is due to circulatory strangulation of the congested vessels, resulting in ischemia and necrosis, and also the platelet dysfunction. They have platelet dysfunction in polycythemia rubra vera. In addition, very high PCVs can go on to develop a chronic DIC-like situation. This happens more often in congenital cyanotic heart disease, but this can occur rarely in PRV as well. Now we'll give a case history of 38-year-old male, non-alcoholic, non-smoker. He came with severe upper abdominal pain of 3 weeks duration, and the pain suggested pancreatitis or mesenteric ischemia to us. The pain was persistent and it was aggravating by food intake, and it was radiating to the back and typical of a pancreatitis. We also thought of mesenteric ischemia, but there was no vomiting, jaundice, or hematemesis. That was why the confusion or delay in diagnosis. General examination was unremarkable in him, but we got a splenomegaly of more than 10 centimeter, which is massive. Cardiovascular and respiratory system were normal. So clinically, we thought of a myeloproliferative disorder with mesenteric ischemia and pancreatitis. But there were no physical signs to suspect polycythemia because the hemoglobin was only 15. Total count was 9,500, but the platelet count was high. This is very important finding. In spite of having a massive splenomegaly, if you get a hemoglobin of 15 and a hematocrit of 47, it is definite increased red cell mass. You don't have to do any other investigation to confirm polycythemia. And because of the splenomegaly and thrombocytosis, it becomes polycythemia rubra vera. His uric acid was very high, APLA was negative, and ultrasound showed acute thrombosis, superior mesenteric vein and portal vein, and that was the cause for leading on to the symptoms. It was actually mesenteric vein thrombosis, but it was not pancreatitis. It was a polycythemia rubra vera with the portal vein and superior mesenteric vein thrombosis, all improved after venesection and anticoagulation. Why this patient has polycythemia rubra vera is normal hematocrit with massive splenomegaly is confirmatory of elevated red cell mass because the splenic pooling is significant. So in that situation, if you get even normal hemoglobin, it is equivalent to polycythemia. And there was no secondary causes. Of the MPDs, increased hemoglobin or normal hemoglobin C is seen only in polycythemia rubra vera. If you take all the other myeloproliferative disorders like CML or myelofibrosis, you will never get an increased hemoglobin or normal hemoglobin. So that is enough to confirm it as polycythemia rubra vera. You don't have to do JAK2 mutation in this patient. So how to diagnose polycythemia rubra vera? We need to have awareness on clinical manifestations of polycythemia, and or we should know how to exclude all other causes of polycythemia by being aware of their clinical features. All the secondary causes we need to exclude primarily by clinical evaluation and look for supportive evidences as in this patient, the splenomegaly, thrombocytosis are enough. In the early stages, polycythemia rubra vera is a diagnosis of exclusion because they can come only with erythrocytosis thrombocytosis and leukocytosis and splenomegaly may be absent in early stages in some of them. This was an interesting patient, a 24-year-old male who had polycythemia and presented with a stroke, and he had a residual hemiplegia. He was walking around with that, with a diagnosis of polycythemia rubra vera. He used to get venesection and hydroxyurea for 5 years. Remember that he is 25 when he came to us. It might have started in 20 years. You should never entertain the diagnosis of polycythemia rubra vera in this patient. And this time, he got admitted with us with the severe high-grade fever and breathlessness and cyanosis. There was no splenomegaly, normal total leukocyte count and platelet count and normal uric acid. This is enough to say it is not polycythemia rubra vera. Then we looked at his X-ray. You can see the conjunctival congestion and the flushed face. This was the X-ray. He had an event duration of diaphragm, which was passed off as an unwanted thing, just can be left alone kind of approach. But this was leading to chronic hypoventilation. So the basic lesson in evaluating polycythemia is rule out other causes before you look for polycythemia rubra vera. This patient should never have been considered as a case of polycythemia rubra vera, but that mistake happens very often. And this patient was given venesection, low-dose heparin and antibiotics, and an emergency surgery was done. And after surgery, he completely recovered. And in fact, the surgery was not done earlier due to wrong diagnosis of polycythemia rubra vera. So the clinical skill is disappearing these days, and clinical evaluation is becoming a thing of the past. People depend more on JAK2 mutation and all, and low erythropoietin levels and all. In fact, this patient's erythropoietin was normal. That's why it was mistakenly diagnosed as PRV, in spite of JAK2 being negative. This was surgery done after surgery. You can see the expansion of the lung. And coming to another patient, a 25-year-old male working in Gulf, came with a giddiness and the blood pressure was very high, 200, 130. There was conjunctival congestion, the PCV was 64. He was given venesection, antihypertensive treatment was started. Then we started evaluating for polycythemia, and ultrasonogram detected nephrocalcinosis. Then we started looking for the cause of nephrocalcinosis. The calcium came as high, phosphate was low, uric acid was 8, RFT was normal, then the PTH was elevated. This was a primary hyperparathyroidism. The nephrocalcinosis and the consequent elevation of erythropoietin was a reason for polycythemia, though nephrocalcinosis is not described as a cause for secondary polycythemia, but it is possible because this is situated in the renal parenchyma. It can irritate the erythropoietin secreting cells or can cause ischemia to the erythropoietin secreting cells. So any renal lesion which can increase erythropoietin can come with polycythemia sometimes, including polycystic kidney disease and hydronephrosis. Another interesting patient, a 28-year-old male who had heavy chronic smoking. He developed left shoulder pain while he was traveling by bus, standing in a bus, carrying a tape recorder tucked under his shoulders. And when he came, he had congestion of eyes, mild jaundice, CVS was normal, no hepatosplenomegaly. His hemoglobin was 18, PCV was 58, and platelet count was normal. Definitely it is not polycythemia rubra vera. It was smoker's polycythemia. This was actually due to the pulmonary embolism and pulmonary pleural effusion, hemorrhagic effusion he developed due to pulmonary infarction because he was traveling, hanging in a bus with a tape recorder tucked under his left shoulder, standing in a bus for hours together, and finally he developed the local injury would have precipitated a thrombus here. Anyway, he came with that, and after treatment, everything improved, and this was a hemorrhagic effusion. In fact, this patient, we put in a chest tube, and that was acting as a venesection also, and we gave heparin in spite of, because it was a pulmonary embolism, in spite of the patient having hemorrhagic effusion, and finally he recovered, and I have the follow-up for this patient for 25 years. Sometimes the ruddy complexion of polycythemia you will miss because of the hyperpigmentation of the skin. This patient had polycythemia rubra vera, but cyanosis is obvious. No, he had no clubbing, no splenomegaly, but platelet count was increased and uric acid was increased. Oxygen saturation was normal. This is one test sometimes you can make use of. Normal oxygen saturation helps in supportive evidence in favor of polycythemia rubra vera. So the investigations in polycythemia are get a complete hemogram. If you have doubt, cross-check before proceeding with further evaluation. Sometimes you find that a repeat hemogram from another lab proves that the original one was wrong. Get a chest X-ray if you suspect a lung disorder. Uric acid high can be an indirect marker, but these days it can be non-specific. When you suspect a renal or hepatic disorder, only you do an ultrasound. There is no point asking for it blindly. Echocardiography only when you suspect a cardiac disorder, like a left-right shunt, a right-left shunt, or a myxoma. Oxygen saturation helps, but more importantly, that is made out by clinical evaluation. And finally, if you have no diagnosis, a period of follow-up is the most valuable investigation. For heaven's sake, never ask for erythropoietin levels, because it does not help us, it misleads us. And some rare cases, methemoglobin estimation can help, because that there are specific features, cyanosis and polycythemia of long duration without any obvious cause. You may look for it. What about the role of peripheral blood smear and bone marrow and JAK2 mutation? These are of no use. Peripheral smear is not needed to diagnose polycythemia rubra vera or any polycythemia. Bone marrow is not needed. But sometimes, for academic purposes, when you have massive splenomegaly, you may do it to document or demonstrate myelofibrosis. But you don't gain anything anyway. And there are no specific cytogenetic abnormality. That's why bone marrow is not needed. JAK2 mutation is a promising marker, but it's not needed because we are not using JAK2 inhibitors. Unless you are using ruxolitinib as an upfront therapeutic agent, there's no point asking for JAK2 mutation in polycythemia evaluation. You can diagnose it without it. Absence does not exclude polycythemia rubra vera. That's another point we need to know. Some 10% may not have it. In the early stages, only 50% may be having JAK2 mutation. It goes on increasing to 90% towards the late stages only. So do not depend on JAK2 mutation to get a diagnosis of polycythemia rubra vera. And it could be low initially, and it rises with the duration of the disease. And negative JAK2 and positive does not confirm it also, because if you look at JAK2 mutation in the general population, 10% may be having it as positive. So positive JAK2 mutation can still be a secondary polycythemia. So it is not JAK2 mutation that helps you in diagnosing polycythemia. So these are the diagnostic guidelines for polycythemia vera. True polycythemia has to be confirmed by high hematocrit and clinical features, and rule out all the secondary causes. Look for splenomegaly, and if splenomegaly is absent, leukocytosis or thrombocytosis. These four are enough to confirm polycythemia rubra vera. And if you want, you can also do arterial oxygen saturation. And if all these are doubtful, no secondary causes found, you can sometimes ask for JAK2 mutation as a supportive evidence, but do not do it routinely. And I'm telling about WHO criteria only to tell that don't do it, because these are difficult to apply, because it includes clonal genetic abnormality other than PH chromosome. We should not even read it actually while evaluating polycythemia rubra vera. These are of no use. But it tells the points, the concepts are clear, but do not use it in clinical evaluation. And if you look at textbook evaluation, it starts with erythropoietin estimation. And the clinicians are making mistakes only because of this textbook evaluation. These are only to give a concept regarding what is polycythemia. Please do not follow this textbook plan algorithm for evaluating polycythemias. This will give you a concept. You should know how to bypass it, avoid it. And this is another textbook giving another method: increase PCV, measure RBC mass, and apparent polycythemia, measure erythropoietin. If you are depending on it, you will always mismanage polycythemias. And this is one apparently reasonable algorithm in another textbook. Even this goes haphazard when it comes here. So there is no point depending on any of these. Now we'll come to another patient who had been subject to the textbook evaluation of polycythemia. A 17-year-old +2 student. He recently developed breathlessness on exertion while playing. The doctor detected congestion of eyes, and he suspected polycythemia, and hemoglobin came on the upper limit, 16.8, and PCV was 48. Then he started investigating according to the algorithm. Erythropoietin was normal. Then JAK2 was done, it was negative. Then could not find a cause, he was advised venesection. At this stage, I happened to see the patient Actually, his congestion was due to allergic rhinitis. He had atopic tendency. The physical examination was unremarkable. He never had any cardiac or respiratory symptoms in the past except allergic rhinitis. So the most crucial next approach in this patient is a review of history. What happened was he came home on a vacation. He was in a hill station for studies for 1 year. And in that 1 year, he did not go for any kind of exercise. He put on weight. And there was a history of weight gain. And when he came back, when he started playing, he had breathlessness on exertion. And the physical examination did not show any abnormalities. And the repeat hemogram, which I asked for, also showed an upper limit of hemoglobin. But again, it is not polycythemia rubra vera. So what was the cause for the symptoms in this patient? One is the history of allergic rhinitis suggests that he could be having subclinical bronchospasm. And because of the weight gain, there will be some increased work of breathing. And the apparently increased hemoglobin is a combination of several of these factors, including staying in a high altitude station. And because of the weight gain and bronchospasm, there will be some increased work of breathing. So all these symptoms are explained by just studying the patient. So coming to the myeloproliferative disorder, polycythemia rubra vera, it is a myeloproliferative disorder. There is a mutation V617F mutation in Janus kinase 2 gene, which produces cytoplasmic kinase, causing cytokine independent proliferation of marrow cell lines. The affected stem cells can proliferate in the absence of erythropoietin. And this is affecting the stem cells. So there is tri-lineage hyperplasia. All the three lineages can increase, RBC, WBC, and platelets. JAK2 mutation is also found in other myeloproliferative disorders like idiopathic myelofibrosis and primary thrombocythemia, erythrocytosis. This was a patient with polycythemia rubra vera. He had a hemorrhagic effusion which was wrongly diagnosed as tuberculous pleural effusion and was put on anti-tuberculous treatment. Then he came to me with arthritis and effusion, and the uric acid was 11. He had a plethoric phase, but PCV was 50, total count and platelet count was normal. Splenomegaly was absent, but clinically it was polycythemia rubra vera. So he was given venesection and anti-tuberculous treatment was stopped, and after 1 year he came with actually he was lost to follow up. This time he developed a myocardial infarction, and this time he had a splenomegaly, and PCV was 62. Platelet count was high and total count was high. Basophils were present. This is confirmatory of polycythemia rubra vera. But if he had been on regular follow-up with venesection, this myocardial infarction could have been avoided. This is the erythromelalgia that I told, digital ischemia, which can go on to gangrene. And some of these patients are wrongly investigated as vasculitic disorder. This is another patient with polycythemia and erythromelalgia. So coming to management of polycythemia rubra vera, they need periodic venesection, 300 to 350 ml, followed by immediately replace that much of fluid with 5% dextrose if the person is not diabetic. Otherwise, normal saline can be used. To keep the PCV below a target level, it should be below 50 or below 46 in females. 45 and 50 can be taken as a target. It should be kept below that. Lifespan is better with the venesection alone rather than using myelosuppression with hydroxyurea. But if the platelet counts are very high or thrombotic episodes are occurring and phlebotomy has to be done frequently, one can use hydroxyurea as well. Somebody is scribbling on the screen, please remove that. How can I do it? And if they need a frequent phlebotomy, also hydroxyurea can be used. Can you remove that scribbling? The administrator can remove it. And in polycythemia rubra vera, there is another space condition called, this is a course in polycythemia rubra vera. After several years, they have a three-phase presentation, plethoric or proliferative phase lasting 15 to 25 years. In fact, for that reason, they have a very good prognosis. Then at the end, they enter a post-polycythemic myeloid metaplasia with myelofibrosis, which can be clinically exactly like myelofibrosis. And very rarely only some of them can enter the acute leukemia also. This is extremely rare. The spent phase of polycythemia rubra vera is exactly like idiopathic myelofibrosis. This happens after 15 to 20 years. And at that time, they develop anemia, spleen becomes grossly enlarged, platelet may be high or decreased at that time, and they develop leukocytosis, and the peripheral blood smear may be reported as leukoerythroblastic blood picture. And at that stage, you may have confusion between other possibilities. This is a patient with a presentation like that. A 56-year-old male from Thrissur. He had early satiety, weight loss of 6 months duration. He never was diagnosed of polycythemia in the past. That is a confusion. He had chronic alcohol intake, skin changes of chronic liver disease, and massive spleen was noted. In spite of massive spleen, hemoglobin was 12. But the total count was 44,000. Eosinophilia, platelet count was very high. So this is enough to say it is a polycythemia rubra vera. And even if the counts are very high, it is not any other diagnosis, because in myeloma, chronic myeloid leukemia, you will never get a hemoglobin like this. So, but the peripheral smear was reported as CML. That was a problem in this patient. That is why he was sent to me. It was not chronic myeloid leukemia, even if the peripheral smear is reported like that, because of myelocytes and metamyelocytes, there was a diagnosis, a possible diagnosis of CML. And BCR-ABL was done, it was negative. That is why he was sent to me. And the bone marrow biopsy showed myelofibrosis. This is a specific case of spent phase of polycythemia rubra vera. Patient was not diagnosed of polycythemia in the past. That is why the confusion. And we had a publication on a series of polycythemia rubra vera cases. 37 cases were published in 2017. And there were 37 cases. 13 were newly diagnosed cases. And the age group lowest was 45. Highest was 72, but I have two patients now who are above 85 years. So age, higher age is possible, but younger age, you should not entertain polycythemia rubra vera. The mean age at presentation was 57 years, and the first clinical presentation was thrombotic event in 32%, symptoms of polycythemia in 54%. Once you look for it, you will get it. Incidentally detected polycythemia in 11% of them. 57% are headache, 43 had dizziness and tiredness in 38 and tinnitus in 35. Conjunctival congestion was very common. Splenomegaly was there in 81%, but 19% did not have splenomegaly. But these patients were JAK2 positive. Because being a study, we wanted to prove that it was polycythemia rubra vera. Thrombotic complications occurred in 35%. But there was an interesting observation here. Those who took fruits and vegetables and regular intake of balanced diet had a lower risk of thrombotic events. And there is another review article which was published in 2008 Medicine Update. If you want, you can read that. It is available online. It gives most of these points which I have been mentioning. Coming to another interesting problem, Gay-Bach's syndrome described in 1905. He described hypertensive patients with plethora and increased PCV without an obvious secondary cause, no splenomegaly, JAK2 negative. And it was also called as stress polycythemia, because some of these patients were found to have stressful life situations. So it remains so, even now it remains so. But I will tell you the story of a doctor, 40-year-old doctor, hypertensive. He came to me in 2009. He had fatigue and tiredness. Hemoglobin was 18, PCV was 54. You can see that total count, differential count, and platelet counts are normal. He had no cardiac, respiratory, or renal disease. USG and chest X-ray were normal. It was diagnosed as PRV because erythropoietin was normal, uric acid was high. But the most important history was missed. He had a 10 kilogram weight gain in the last 3-4 years. This was the cause for his polycythemia. On weight reduction of 5 kilogram, his PCV became normal. And even after 10 years, it is still remaining normal. But I just wanted to get the follow-up. Yesterday, I called him to find out that he has diabetes now. Otherwise, his polycythemia is cured. Now coming to the day before yesterday, I got a message from one of the patients, a 25-year-old male, whom I had seen 2 years ago. He had repeated venisections to control the polycythemia, and on weight reduction, he became normal. So this was a letter. He wanted to know whether he can go for vaccination. So this is a point which I wanted to stress with this talk, especially during this COVID scenario. Weight gain can not only produce not only diabetes and hypertension and NASH, it can also produce polycythemia. It's a new lifestyle disorder. The hypertensive young persons, mostly males, because females are protected because of the periodic blood loss, they will manifest only after menopause. I have been studying them for the last 20 years, and it is often associated with the hypertension and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And recently we had completed a study of these patients. It is being completed. They have several of them have combination of hypertension, hyperuricemia, NASH, and diabetes. All these can coexist. And in fact, this is the point which I was trying to tell, that polycythemia is to be seen as a new lifestyle disorder. It's a chronic hypoventilation due to the weight gain only. If you can call it as Gay-Bocks syndrome for the 100 years, why not call it as PK syndrome in 2021? It's for joking only. I'm telling that unless, because these syndromes are not diseases. One person, intelligent person, may observe and describe it. It is our duty to find out what it is due to, and subsequently, that is a mistake that we are doing in the medical practice. That's the point I wanted to stress. So coming to clinical approach to polycythemia summary, always look for polycythemia, confirm with a hemogram, repeat if necessary. Exclude apparent polycythemia before considering polycythemia. Look for secondary causes by good clinical evaluation. Look also for features of supportive evidences in favor of polycythemia rubra vera, like splenomegaly, thrombocytosis, and leukocytosis, and confirm the diagnosis clinically with ordinary investigations and a period of follow-up observation and venesection. You don't have to do all these investigations upfront, because anyway the patient needs venesection, diet and lifestyle modification, but always resort to diet and lifestyle changes and weight reduction in all of them. Even in polycythemia rubra vera, we get excellent results by reducing the number of venesections and well-being when they are subjected to weight reduction. So even if it is polycythemia rubra vera, lifestyle changes are very important. Avoid looking for erythropoietin and JAK2 routinely in all these patients. The take-home messages are these: polycythemia in a given patient is always multifactorial. It can be due to weight gain. It can be due to living at high altitude. It can also be due to a renal artery stenosis sometimes, or it can be due to an incidentally occurring polycythemia rubra vera. So there are multiple factors in everyone. That is why even in polycythemia rubra vera, weight reduction and lifestyle changes help them manage the polycythemia. But never miss reversible common causes like smokers polycythemia and chronic hyperventilation or weight gain. It's a lifestyle disorder. Do not look for PRV in less than 30 years unless there are definite features of it. Named diseases are not diseases. Because they just describe a clinical state or a situation, like the Gay-Bocks syndrome, Kikuchi syndrome, Castleman disease, Takayasu disease, Rosai-Dorfman, metabolic syndrome. These are all clinical situations described by some people who just wanted to arrange them together under one heading. They did not know what it is. It is our duty, the next generation, to find out what it is by studying them properly. Thank you for the patient hearing. If you have any questions, I can take, and any clarifications also we can discuss. I hope I have conveyed the message on how to approach polycythemia. And next time, see you next time on balanced diet, because that is very important during this season. Hello. Any questions or clarifications? Any questions in the chat box? Hello.
Hello, sir.
Any questions in the chat box?
Sir. Yes, sir. Can hydroxyurea alone can keep the hemoglobin levels below the target?
Anyway, it can in some selected patients, but do not depend on hydroxyurea alone, because when we start using hydroxyurea, we have reached a stage that the patient needs frequent venesection, or there are other compelling indications like very high platelet count. In that stage only we start hydroxyurea. Otherwise, better not to start hydroxyurea alone. Always keep the patient by reassurance and venesection, and they can have a normal life also. And for that reason, do not attempt using hydroxyurea alone. Anyway, they require lifestyle and diet modification and weight reduction, just like any other secondary polycythemias. But do not depend on hydroxyurea alone to keep it at the target level.
Okay, so this is asked in the context that during this COVID time, it is unfortunate to see that many patients with polycythemia are denied routine venesection, and patients were asked to do COVID antigen before doing venesection, and also due to travel difficulty. In that context, this was asked.
In that context, maybe as a compelling indication, you may use it. But this is unfortunate because doctors, I don't know, Dr. Arun Thomas has asked this question. But
Yeah.
it is that is interesting because that is a very unfortunate situation arising from the lack of common sense among doctors. That's what I will say. But as a last resort, it's a man-made disaster also. So let us use it maybe temporarily. But even in that situation, venesection is the best treatment because I am using venesection only even now, even during COVID season. I give venesection only rather than using hydroxyurea alone.
Another question: what is the role of aspirin?
I forgot to mention that aspirin should be given whenever the platelet count is high. Good that you asked because I forgot to mention. Whenever the platelet count is high, aspirin has to be given. Even otherwise, a overweight person with other risk factors needs aspirin when there is polycythemia, even if it is secondary. That is to prevent cardiovascular events because they have a higher risk of getting cardiovascular events. But go for the smaller doses because the platelet function is poor in patients with the polycythemia rubra vera and essential thrombocythemia. So do not go for 150 milligram routinely. It should be at the smaller dose only.
Sir, another question: how frequently venesection can be done?
Venesection can be done even alternate day if you want an immediate reduction. In 3-4 days you can do it if you want a quick reduction. Even alternate day, once weekly is more ideal till you achieve the target level. After that, many patients can be maintained on once a week venesection. More frequently is not needed except in the acute immediate phase of presentation. Any other?
Sir, in the evaluation of polycythemia, what is the importance of RBC count?
RBC count is specific, but I don't think it is necessary even because the PCV and hematocrit hemoglobin is more than enough. Though RBC count, it is difficult to remember the normal values even. RBC count is definitely useful. It is very high in polycythemia rubra vera, especially.
So next question: how to treat polycythemia rubra vera who became COVID positive?
COVID positive, I had several patients, polycythemia patients becoming, even autoimmune hemolysis becoming COVID positive, SLE becoming COVID positive. Just treat them like any other patient. But some of them can have an increased risk of complications because of the polycythemia. They may have a higher risk of thrombotic tendency, pulmonary embolism. And for that reason, their hemoglobin has to be kept in the optimal level and hydration has to be very good. They have to reassure they should be given anticoagulation also. And if the PCV is high, venesection also should be given. And other treatments as in the usual protocol.
Next question: do patients on frequent venesection need regular iron supplements?
That is one. In fact, we are producing iron deficiency by venesection to achieve a lower hemoglobin levels. Definitely they will have iron deficiency, but sometimes you may have to give iron when the thrombocytosis is uncontrollable. Because of the iron deficiency, secondary erythrocytosis might come on top of the already existing thrombocytosis. To a certain extent, you can suppress that reactive thrombocytosis by giving iron. Or if the hemoglobin drops below a certain level, you may have to give iron also. I had to give it in several patients.
So when will you suspect transformation into leukemia?
That is extremely rare. I am yet to see a patient who are transformed into leukemia. they die due to, if at all they die due to other incidental diseases rather than due to polycythemia rubra vera. And I have follow-up after 25 years, and nothing has happened even after 25 years in some patients. No one has died due to acute leukemia so far. I don't remember anyone by heart now, but possibly some of them can transform into acute leukemia.
So no further questions.
When will you
If
suspect?
any-
Okay, that was the last question. Any other direct questions? Anybody? I see Arun Thomas is there. Arun Thomas is from Trivandrum, our PG. He passed MD from Calicut. Who else is there? Any more questions or comments? Otherwise, we may wind up and see.
Sir, there's a question in the chat box. Consuming borewell water with polycythemia, any relation, sir?
Borewell water and polycythemia. I could not think of any direct relation. Suppose there is some component which can stimulate erythrocytosis, it is possible. For example, I heard, it is not published, but I have observed that people who eat the broiler chicken has got an increased chance of getting increased erythrocytosis. The polycythemia is higher in them. Maybe because the broiler chicken contains hormones as well, which can increase erythropoiesis. Similarly, in the bowel, if you have some substances, some chemicals, which can increase erythropoiesis, it is possible, but otherwise it is not a universal phenomenon. There are substances which can increase erythropoiesis. Or it may contain erythropoietin-like substances, rarely. Anyway, I have not heard of, who asked that question?
Sir, the question is in the chat box by Fatima Lafna.
No, the reason for asking will help us. Why that question was asked? Has Dr. Fatima observed a patient like that?
Sir, I'm Fatima.
Hello, please tell.
Sir, actually, my husband was having polycythemia.
Okay.
So he was evaluated, but everything was in normal limits.
Okay.
He was having that doubt because there is increased iron content.
Okay. See, hemochromatosis can sometimes come with the polycythemia-like presentation. Look for serum ferritin, hemochromatosis. Most importantly, it is weight gain from the normal is the reason for polycythemia in undiagnosed situations. So if you are overweight, reducing the weight and improving diet and lifestyle will make the hemoglobin normal, PCV normal. This is a point which that is why I was very keen on talking on this subject, because people think that Western data will help us in solving all our problems. That is the biggest foolishness. I'm sure in spite of my describing that problem, Gaisbach syndrome, I am giving a changed definition, but it will never be quoted in my name because it has to come from a Western country. It has to be known as an accepted point. That is our attitude to observation and medical field. That is our slavery in medical profession. So let us know that I'm sure he must be overweight. What is his height and weight? I can tell you the answer since you have revealed it.
62 kgs.
62.
Kgs, 160.
160?
165 centimeters.
And 62 kg. 165 can reduce the weight to at least 55. You can reduce the weight by at least 5 kg and see the result. If he is not a smoker or alcoholic, and if you can reduce the weight and stop using this broiler chicken also. Okay. And on weight reduction, most likely will improve. Rarely, some people may have some renal lesions like a cystic lesion in the kidneys, polycystic kidney, if he's not a hypertensive.
That he was evaluated, everything was normal.
So most likely it is weight gain only. You reduce the weight, he will become normal.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other point?
Sir, if no further question,
The question
sir,
was
one more question.
question was, when will you suspect transformation? I thought the chance of transformation. When will you suspect transformation is when you find blast in the peripheral blood. When you find dropping platelet count, dropping hemoglobin, and rising total count, and blast in the peripheral blood, you suspect transformation to leukemia. I heard the question wrongly. It is extremely rare, but you will suspect transformation when you get blast in the peripheral blood. Any other?
Sir, one more question. At what frequency should we monitor PCV in patients on venesection? Is there indication for further venesection once PCV becomes normal?
If it is a polycythemia rubra vera, you need a frequent venesection. But if it is secondary polycythemia due to weight gain or smoking, once you stop smoking and change the lifestyle, and when you reduce the weight, you don't need any venesection at all. That is why I gave the case history of two individuals. One is a 24-year-old male, another a 40-year-old male. And I have a 57-year-old female also, because after menopause, some female also can come with weight gain and polycythemia. Any other question?
So no further questions.
Thank
Any
you.
direct,
Any direct question? Any more? Don't hesitate to ask. If you have any direct question, we can ask, because it need not be that formal also, because it is a common problem, not uncommon problem, and often mismanaged. That is why I thought I will discuss this. If there are no more queries, comments, we will wind up and see you next week on balanced diet. Hello.
sir, one person is raising his hand. P. Somasundaran.
Please.
Varsha, can you please unmute?
Please unmute Somasundaran.
Sir,
yes. Please.
Sir, increased number of cases in polycythemia in Wayanad when compared to other districts due to high altitude.
Partly due to higher altitude, partly due to other reasons. That you need to find out whether every person is different. You cannot say it is increased number everywhere now. It is not just Wayanad alone, because it's a lifestyle disorder. It's a lifestyle disorder. That is what do not just remove that Gaze box syndrome from your mind. It is not a Gaze box syndrome anymore, because he described hypertension with polycythemia, and since 1905 it remains like that. It is purely due to chronic hypoventilation.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Sir? Hello, sir.
Sir, so
Hello. Any more points? Otherwise, we can conclude.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
If there is no further question, we can wind up the session. I would like to invite Dr. Nishat Rahman, Senior Resident, Department of Family Medicine, for delivering vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. First of all, I thank Sir for a very elaborate and interesting topic on the approach of polycythemia. And he made it clear that we are to rule out all the secondary causes before diagnosing primary polycythemia. And he made it clear by citing some interesting case scenarios also. And he also made us think that the polycythemia is a new lifestyle disorder. And I thank you, sir, for a very elaborate and interesting topic. And I also thank all the participants and the participants who made the session very interesting by asking queries. And I also hope that you will be with us in our upcoming sessions also. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.